So basically how we're gonna go, we'll just do a quick introduction. That's the agenda for here, relocating to Kenya TV series and just more information on, both models. So there's a few people here who what we help people do is sublet, which is we go out and rent a place for low rent. And then now we go make it amazing, furnish it really well, make it into a serviced and furnished unit. Um, and then now we have, for example, one boy here who will be joining this conversation today. She has now corporate tenants, people coming from all over the world moving to Kenya, and they need places to stay. So it's about how can we make an amazing unit. So now you can have a corporate tenant. You can have that secured income and cash flow because it's a corporate client. We've gone through the process. Your place is amazing. It's comfortable. It's something that, attracts other people to come and stay in, right? So it's about having that cash flow in. And what we tell people is like, you don't just want to rely on Airbnb. So now that we have one boy here, our units could be booked out 90% occupancy, 90% occupancy, right? So today what we're going to do is we're going to go into what areas should you expect to receive in rental income, what areas you're going to expect to see in rental income, which is quite powerful. And yeah, you guys will be able to ask any questions that you have. Okay. One boy, are you there?
I'm still here.
Okay. Yeah, just I wanted to ask you how have you been seeing things in Nairobi at the moment? How you feeling about everything and being able to be so amazing?
Nairobi is right now, we're preparing for the June, July, August transition. I'm going to call it that. It's a transition when we see, especially the families predominantly, either leaving or arriving. Now, during this time, we get a lot of uptake, especially for our, say, you can say our short-term accommodation requirements. This is when we see a lot of people taking up short-term accommodations who will, I guess, at some point will have their family joining them for August and September school start. Yeah, so that's I think that's what we're preparing for at the moment, as far as the relocation space and the real estate space. That's where we're at. For the apartments, which are targeting non-family types, like I said, in some of the previous discussions, these more or less have consistent flow throughout the year. And like I said, a lot of our corporate clients would be taking these up for, 6 months up to a year. So these are largely unaffected by this kind of seasonal fluctuations. But then during specifically this time of year, we do see this slight uptake or demand for those short term, for about 3 months. You would have one family member, at least a family member who is being relocated, report to Nairobi. Sometimes they would more or less like secure a space, and then temporary accommodations, move with some of their items, start reporting into work. They may take a vacation 1 or 2, weeks because it's summer break. So they would want to be with family, of course. But would more or less have some form of base here in Nairobi, and then would only now bring in their family, say around, yes, that August, September timeline in time for school start. We also do receive quite a number of tourists around this time of year during, I guess, this northern summer break. People, yeah, on vacation. What are they called? The migrations. The migrations. I don't know if you're all familiar with those, but there's Masai Mara migrations, which normally start around the month of July to around September, would be coming up. So then you see a lot of your tourists coming in during this time. From a standpoint of business tourism, this is low season. Again, because of the northern summer break, a lot of the diplomatic missions and the UN, and also because, children are on break, it tends to be slow. So no serious conferences are held around this time of year. Yeah, so it would be more your tourists or travel, just a normal tourist travel, seeing the Mara migrations, or like I said, the uptake of the short-term accommodations in preparation for taking long-term accommodations from around August, September. So that's the current situation, I would say. Situation report for Nairobi.
Wow. So, like, I just want to break that up a little bit, just for everyone to understand. So, in terms of, let's say if someone was to have a unit in Nairobi, and like when you're seeing with corporate relocations that you're seeing, someone could vacate their apartment or stay in their apartment for 6 months throughout the year. Then let's say they have another 3 months through short term lets, business conventions, people coming to Nairobi. Is that true? Like if someone was to have an amazing serviced unit here, and I know we're just getting started, we're going to go into this whole thing, but let's just get straight into the amazing juice. If someone was to have an amazing apartment here, how could they expect and to have occupancy in their apartment, and where are those sources of occupancy coming from with, let's say, someone like you as a relocation consultant?
So at this time of year, like I said, we would be seeing the short-term occupancy would be either your tourists, so just coming to tour. There is a little bit of diaspora. We're talking about Kenyans who are visiting for the summer break because families are on break. So you would have a bit of that. And then from my standpoint, I would have what I have right now are the corporate clients who are targeting having their families join in the August, September school start. So those are the clientele that I have at the moment.
Mm. And
Yeah.
how long are those stays, like for example, that you would get an assignee, and what do that type of stay, what do they look for, a 1 or 2 bedroom?
They would be looking for a two bedroom minimum. So two, they can take up to three, but typically 2 bedroom because the family is only going to join them for a little while, and ultimately they would now then move into be looking while they're in the temporary accommodation. They would be looking for an unfurnished house, yeah, to move into long term. So here you would have say the I guess the family member who is the one requiring to start work, move in
Recording in
early.
progress.
Yeah, and so they just require, yeah, 2 bed. Typically, this would be a 2 bed unit, furnished and serviced.
And how many clients do you see coming to you looking for a 1 bedroom unit? And what are the budgets that, one of these amazing people should expect to see in rents? And we're going to go into the areas next. That's the next part. Westlands, Lavington, Kileleshwa. What should you expect in rental income if you do have a luxurious furnished unit, which is our specialty in what we're doing at the moment. So yeah, what would you
Yeah.
say? How many clients are coming through for 1 bedroom, and 2 bedroom, and what are the price? What should people receive in rental income?
Yeah. For a corporate lot, a lot of them don't take the 1 bed. The demand seems to lean more towards the 2 bed units. In part, I know that this is because a lot of our assignees, and I've said this before, come with the idea that they only want a 1 bed unit. But there seems to be a lot of excitement that then builds up once they are sharing about their move into Nairobi. So we see this shift, and now the demand for the 2 bed comes in because they start getting a lot of family members who are now wanting to come visit. So that second bedroom becomes important for them to have. So we see a lot more interest in 2 beds, rarely 1 bed. And I'm going to be very cautious and say that this is for our assignees. Again, because these are corporate clients and they're looking for, we're talking about minimum 3 months stay, but typical, a year worth of stay. So they do get yeah, a lot of family members and friends, I guess, interested in coming to visit. So a lot of them, yeah, like 99% end up in two bed. This is where at least the demand for my clients lies, in more of the two bed range. That said, I'm not, there is demand for one beds. But I think mostly that will be from your more maybe business tourists who are going to be in Nairobi for a week, maybe 2 weeks, or those who are traveling. I think a lot of travelers may that the one bed space is mostly with your business tourists and the travelers who are coming either to visit the migrations or the like
So are
transitioning as visitors.
So are you saying if someone here has a one bedroom, that's more likely for the Airbnb, the short-term rents, than more your corporate clients? Because exactly where your demand is going to benefit us. For the people who are a part of this that we're working on at the moment,
Yeah.
we're also here to serve you, one boy, because you have clients, your corporate clients who are coming and they're coming to Nairobi, they need an amazing place. So the one of the amazing people here, whether you own a place or you're subletting, either way, you can come in now and they have you, we're able to serve you. So you're saying would the one bedroom more look like if someone has that budget of a one bedroom, you're saying would be more of a short-term let Airbnb? And what's a percentage of a client coming through you that will stay in a one bedroom? And is it very short term?
Yeah. From my lot, like I said, will not typically take one beds. 99, almost 99% of our assignees go for two bed.
Mm.
Yeah, will be in the two bed range.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's very interesting. And so what could you expect to receive in rental income from both, let's say, a one or two bedroom, before we fully get into it?
Okay. So coming from the standpoint of the market, I'm going to talk about, I think my angle is more the kind of budgets that they come to me with. Yeah.
Perfect.
So I can speak on that. So for I had prepared like a case scenario.
You want to share your screen?
Um, I could, 1 second, if I can figure this out.
No worries at all.
Share. You cannot share screen while the other participant is sharing. Okay, so I think you.
Yeah, I've stopped.
Okay, so let me try again. Uh-huh. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Whew. Okay. So sorry, this is incomplete. I started it and I didn't quite finalize it. But here I have the case study of Tanu. Tanu is, I just made that up. So, recent grad, and is working with a project management firm and then on rotation. Typically, they come on rotation for about 6 months up to a year, and they would start immediately, like I said. And these, we get this kind of assignees throughout the year. They're typically not accompanied in terms of by family members. And what they would typically do on their own, they would book their temporary accommodations, typically for about 2 weeks. We do not influence that or have no influence on that as far as that booking. So they select some form of accommodations and they typically would book this through Airbnb. And then while they are in the 2 weeks, they would then look for long-term accommodations for 6 months and up to 1 year. The typical budget that we see with this lot is about your $1,800 per month rate. And the neighborhoods that mostly appeal to them would be Kilimani, Kileleshwa, Riverside, and Raptor Road.
Okay, just let me stop you there. So you're saying 1,800 a month for let's say a two bedroom in Kilimani, in those areas you just mentioned. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, okay, guys, I want you to think about what she just said there. 1,800 is US dollars. Can you just say I'm correct?
yes, 1800.
I love to hear that. US dollars. Perfect. Okay. So 1,800 US dollars that one boy's clients that they come with their budget, they come to one boy. So you guys now, and that's just is that for and there's different areas you can get more. That's just minimum, would you say?
Yeah. So this is the average. 1800 is average.
Average.
Sometimes they'll come with about 1500. And they would, the range can go up to, I mean, we have some of these assignees who are happy to spend even up to $2,000. Um, like I said, so these are your young professionals. These are young professionals. They, they're, like I said, they're moving from one regional office to the next. Nairobi is part of their growth and development team, training, within the corporation, and they're going to be here for, 6 months up to a year. But yes, the range of the budget ranges that they come to us with would start from around 1,600 and go up to around $2,000. But the average, which I've indicated here, the average is about 1,800.
1,800. Okay, and
Yeah.
I want to make this realistic for people. For some of those you guys are in the subletting model, like you just mentioned Kilimani, for example. Like my mum and a lot of you guys who have seen my mum's place, I've showed her so many times. There was a reason why she did a two bedroom, right? Because of what you're saying, it's just in terms of that long term. But remember, guys, for some of you guys who are subletting, right? Let's say you can go to Kilimani and find a nice, beautiful two bedroom for 70K, for 60K, for maybe 80K. But now you just said at least 1,800 is the average that you could get in month. Even if you get 1,500, that's not too bad. And how I think I want to just picture the image just quickly, one boy. How do they pay? I remember you had mentioned in the last one, but how do the clients pay once, let's say they've got a place for 3 to 6 months to 12 months, even for, let's say, a two bedroom apartment?
Yeah. The initial payment is normally heavy. I think most of you will be familiar. There is going to be a security deposit. You called it bond the other day, but yes, security deposit is the local term we use for it here. For furnished accommodations, this is typically 2 months, the value of the rent. And then there is the first rental payment. Yeah. Now, this varies. If the lease is in the individual name, a lot of it will, a lot of, I would say 50%, 50% 50% will want to negotiate to have a monthly rental payment. And about 50% are happy to pay quarterly, especially if they get a discount on the rent. So this is an area where there's some wiggle room for negotiation. Yeah. If the lease is under the corporate's name, then typically corporates prefer to pay quarterly. And the reason behind it is, there's a lot more bureaucracies in making corporate payments within the organization. You have to raise an invoice, they have to process it, all those nuances. They prefer to do them as few times as possible. So quarterly rentals are standard. Some organizations even ask for all the invoices for the year's quarters upfront, just so that they key them into the system to make sure there's no delays. So it's automated and that payments are processed every quarter without delay.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
We've got a few questions from the audience, so we're going to get straight into it. But just from what you just said, guys, think about it. Now we have one boy here. So we'll have a WhatsApp group for everyone who comes through our roadmap. Whether you can own a place, or you come through and we start from scratch. And let's say now you get in the WhatsApp group for the landlords. Oh, we've got an assignee for 6 months, for 8 months coming, and they want to have a look at your place, right? In your two bedroom apartment in Kilimani that you're maybe paying rent $600 a month. She just said the companies would pay quarterly, guys. So let's say per quarter, 1,800 times three, that's $5,400 Boom. Plus, I didn't even just talk about the security deposit and everything else. $5,400. Of course, you got to pay your expenses. So think about that cash flow coming per quarter because you have an amazing apartment in Nairobi. So now the first question, so someone asked, what about if I have my own apartment? That's fantastic. What we would obviously ask is the location. We're not going to just accept anyone to be a part of this because again, if your location doesn't meet one boy's criteria where she can place the clients, it doesn't matter how good your apartment is, but if it's not in a good location, that her clients are staying, we can't serve you. So that would have to be dependent. We would have to find out. Now we have another question is one boy, what specifics does one boy look for in a unit? Amenities, location, and does she vet the units? Again, we're going to go into more specific locations as she's showing here. Someone asked, how do I begin this? There is my link in the calendar. We do have 5 spots. One boy and I are actually going through this process with one amazing person here already, which, she's here. So it's about listening and learning and educating. So yeah, couple questions there. But yeah, what specifics do you look for in a unit, amenities, location, and do you vet the units?
Okay. Specifics. So these are very much dependent on the assignees. So in this case, our case study here of Tanu, Tanu would select the unit. So what we do is we typically would have a call with her to understand what her needs are. What to also understand, we also needs are, but we also now get a profile of where she's currently moving from, because this is helpful in terms of managing expectations. I think I've mentioned before, depending if they're coming from, say, the Dubai office, they would want more modern. They've been living in a 2-bed there. They would want something similar. They would want, say, a balcony. They would want make sure that there's a gym in the building, a pool. Some do ask for pools, some not. But we customize our search depending on the assignee. Now, I'm talking about basic minimum requirements: perimeter stone wall, electric fence, 24-hour guards have to be in place. This should not be a problem for a lot of the apartments. Yeah. Then very important, actually covering all this, they have to be within the UN approved blue zone spaces. And then, so that's just the basic. Now, then we then now align when we search. We look for properties, of course, which meet, if they've asked for, 2-bed, that's minimum 2-bed, looking for modern. Again, depending on where they're coming from, we do get those who like modern, but we also do get those who are happy to compromise on the modern, but are looking, say, for more greener spaces, more mature spaces. So green views and more spacious rooms. Somehow the built in Nairobi is such that a lot of modern apartments come very compact. And if you're looking for more space, and then you have to sometimes compromise and pick a property which is slightly older, but more spacious. And so, yeah, so we align the needs. In terms of previewing, yes, we do schedule. Once the assignee has reported back, like I said, typically they would book themselves into an Airbnb. We are not involved in that part. So they select this entirely on their own on whatever platform they use for booking. And during those 2 weeks, we would schedule time with them and we would actually visit these units with them. Yeah. Now, our eyes on the ground are more to align with their employers' security requirements. But they have to view and make sure, so they look at issues of furnishing, they look at amenities, they look at, the neighborhood in terms of, depending on how their lifestyle is. If they like spending a lot of time outdoors, they would look at the greenery, they would look at green spaces that are available to them, spaces where they can, say, have a coffee and the like. So those kind of, access to shopping facilities, access to spaces where they can, have recreation. We get a lot of, especially these young ones, asking for access to pubs and, nightclubs that they can walk to, or access eateries and the like. So they select then the unit, and then we proceed and assist them with the leasing process.
So let me ask you quickly, when you have like for the people here who are going to set up a unit, right? What do we want if we're not there? Like if I'm not in Nairobi and I want this to be an investment, I want this to bring me $2,000, a month, $1,000 a month, right? I get that per quarter. That's 3 grand per quarter cash in my bank account, coming through Kenya, right? High cash flow. What turns away your clients when they come to a place? What turns them off? What about the location turns them off? What about, because we want to assure that if you bring us a client that they're going to come to one of our 2 bedrooms, one of the people here say, yep, cool, we'll get it, $2,000 a month. So yeah, like we want it because we want to guarantee people are going to see their return on investment. They're going to, be able to have a place that's occupancy 95%. When you're not in Nairobi, your place is occupied. And when you are in Nairobi, like I'm going to Nairobi next week, I don't have to pay expensive money for Airbnb. I just sublet my unit, which has been paying my rent for me, but I go stay there. So people want, when I'm not in Nairobi, how do I know that I'm going to have a place that's 95% occupancy, that's not only, paying out my expenses, but bringing me cash?
Mm. The biggest turnoff in Nairobi at the moment, especially in the neighborhoods, these neighborhoods that I have listed here, which are where our young lot like to live, the biggest turnoff is construction. Yeah, sadly, we still have quite a number of ongoing construction. So people don't like to see, it's a big turnoff when, there's a construction going on next door, or or say your balcony window is looking onto a construction area. So this is typically quite a big turnoff. In fact, where we are aware of it, and among my team, we typically would just flag that property, and unless the agent presenting this property can assure that this particular unit that they want to present to us is not facing the construction, we typically would just put it, kind of shelve it for about a year, let the construction come to an end before we resume anything, just to prevent this kind of disappointment. We've had, a lot of our signees, these are corporate professionals, so their time is of the essence, and so they'll, sometimes at the gate, we arrive at the compound, at the gate, they'll see a construction next door and they'll just say, no, I think not interested, let's move on, let's go to the next one. So we do get this, and to prevent this this kind of situation, because it's a waste of time for them. So this is typically the biggest turnoff, being near a construction site. Yeah. Beyond that, when it comes to the units themselves, we for the buildings, and this is a tricky one because I'm still not sure how to balance it. But for our clients wanting long-term accommodations, they prefer to not be in a building which is also taking short lets. It sounds, I know it may, and it's confusing because it's like a double-edged sword. On the one hand, they want the, they themselves need the Airbnb for the 2 weeks prior, but long term, a lot of them will not want to stay in the buildings that are taking short lets. And it's more about access control. With properties that are staying 1 or 2 nights, are able to accept, or an overnight or 1-2 nights, even up to a week stay. You have a lot of people walking in and out of these buildings, and it's hard to control security. Even though you have a register and all this, the elevators tend to be more full. You just see a lot of people around the spaces. We have had a number of situations, can be borderline a bit uncomfortable for our clients, where say on a Friday morning or a Saturday morning, you've scheduled a viewing and you're in the elevator and you find there was overnight guests from the previous night and they're in the elevator with you and maybe scantily dressed. So we find that turns off a lot of our corporate clients. So overall, a lot of them do state upfront that even though they are staying themselves initially in a short let space, for their long-term accommodations, they want quieter spaces that have control, so that the residents are mostly long-term, similar-minded, I guess, long-term residents. And there is, there's not so much foot traffic and more secure, some form of secure, better control of who is accessing that building.
So interesting point there. You're basically saying a lot of buildings where they allow a lot of short lets, a lot of your corporate exclusive clients don't it's a bit, which makes sense. And I've had a few ideas with some of our clients that we're taking this through is like, okay, how can I find buildings that are not like that don't allow short-term stays that we can have exclusively for your corporate clients that they can come in. And even if we do have short-term stays, it's going to be extremely premium, high class, because a lot of these guys are coming from, business networking. They're in Nairobi for 2, 3, 4 nights, to things like where it's a bit more, but yeah, more long-term clients.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. We've got a few questions. Maybe do you want to show the map? And then let's start to go into I know you've showed this a little bit here, but the rental income, because some people want to clarify what are some blue zone areas, right? So if someone wants to be a part of this, we have a few questions here. How much is needed to set up? Yes, we will go into those prices as well, on how much is needed to set up. But for example, it depends on what you're doing, whether you own a property or you're subletting. So it depends. What do you want to do? So yeah, maybe one boy, do you want to show us the map? We can talk a little bit about what blue zone, and then let's go into specific areas. Okay, if I get a 2 bedroom in Westlands, how much rental income can I expect to earn from a corporate client? If I have a 2 bedroom or 1 bedroom in Kilimani, in Lavington, I think that would be good direction for people so they can understand what return on investment that they're going to get.
You see Nairobi now?
Yes, we can.
That's the airport. That is the county boundary towards the south. I'm pointing on it with my cursor. So the brown space, this is the Nairobi National Park in the kind of beige brown color. And then that is towards the north here, Kiambu County, towards the north, yeah. Now, the blue zone, I'm just going to zoom in, is blue is the color of the UN. And so the blue zone is just the UN designated spaces. The UN headquarters is here. You can see just next to Karura Forest, which is towards your north, yeah? You remember I showed you the northern boundary with Kiambu County, there it is. So the UN is right about here. So Runda, which is this neighborhood, Roslyn area, towards Nyari, and then Kitisuru and Lower Kabete, Spring Valley. In this mid area, we have Riverside Drive. It doesn't show, but that's it right here, that where I'm pointing at. Kileleshwa, Lavington, and Kilimani. So they're all within the blue zone, yeah? And then towards the south, near the national park, there are the neighborhoods of Karen and Langata, which are right about here. These are also included in the blue zone. So this is what we refer to when we talk about the blue zone neighborhood. Again, the classification of the blue zone is from the UN. And these are typically neighborhoods which have low density population and low incidence of insecurity. And what the corporates, the diplomatic missions do is they more or less align with the UN, because the UN is the largest uptake for expatriate housing, at least here in Nairobi. Yeah. So so these are the different neighborhoods. Now, the different neighborhoods have different zoning restrictions as far as building is concerned. Yeah. In these middle neighborhoods, I'm going to call them middle neighborhoods. They're middle because they're central to Nairobi. So they're parallel to where the city center is. The city center is somewhere around here. And so these are the neighborhoods which are sandwiched between the highway, the A104 or Nairobi Expressway, Waiyaki Way, this highway of ours, which has several names depending on where you catch it. And then Ngong Road towards the south. So these are Kilimani, Kilileshwa, there's Riverside here, and there's a bit of Raptor Road here. And then, of course, there's Lavington. Yeah. Now, the neighborhoods that are around here that I'm pointing at, which is Kilimani, Kilileshwa, Riverside, and Raptor Road, allow construction upwards. So this is where you'll find a lot of apartments built. And next in Lavington, there's some sliver of Lavington that allows apartments, but predominantly Lavington is demarcated for low-level buildings. So they allow up to, ground floor, first and a second, so in form of townhouses. So there are many townhouses in Lavington area and several standalone houses. So Lavington does tend, because of this, some of the apartments that are found in Lavington tend to enjoy very green views because your neighbors are not allowed to build upwards. Yeah, so you enjoy a lot of green views. So around here, towards the north, you find a sliver of Lavington here that allows apartments, Muthangari, as well as close to Gitanga Road. There's a Hendricks neighborhood here, and towards Valley Arcade here, you'll find some apartments. Yeah, so neighboring, more or less like hugging Kileleshwa very closely. And then here towards the north is hugging Westlands. Yeah. When you cross the highway in Brookside also does allow apartments. And then Spring Valley, a few apartments, and then it transitions. The farther north you go, so farther away from the city center, then it transitions from apartments to townhouses, and then eventually to homes on half acre. So half acre per family dwelling is the restriction. Say towards by the time you get towards Nyari, Kitisuru, Roslyn, and Runda. Yeah, it's half acre per family dwelling. Now, in terms, can I close this now? Is that clear? Or is there any questions on this?
Guys, any
this
questions?
little orientation?
No questions.
Okay, so I'm going to close that out, and I'm going to go back to this this table that I had started sharing. And this is the pricing, the typical rental rates that we find for unfurnished units.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So just quickly.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. I'll just add. So what we look for is for people who are subletting, what we'll do, we'll go and look for unfurnished units so that we can make into amazing furnished units and charge high premium in rent. Okay, so let's go. Let's look at the unfurnished units.
Yeah, so for unfurnished units, typical rentals, I'm going to just focus in on the apartment range. Yeah. So here you can see the neighborhoods of Brookside, Gravelia Grove, which is kind of part of Brookside, but into a bit Spring Valley, Kileleshwa, Kilimani, Lavington, a little bit of Peponi Road. Sorry, that's a typo. Riverside and Westlands. So for your one bedroom, about $600 to $1,000. You can see here it says fair in terms of availability. Yeah, they're not many. They're not many. What we do have in abundance is the two-bed options. And these typically rent in the range of, yeah, oh, sorry, this is the size. Yeah, in the 12 to 2,500. Yeah,
Mhm.
depending again on the neighborhood. Yeah. So Kilimani is where you would have, say, your most favorable rental rate. So for our clients who are coming to us who are very tight on their budget, then Kilimani is where they would find abundance of maybe more options for a lower budget. And then as you come towards further north, come towards Westlands, the rental range seems to go up, generally goes up as you come closer towards where the UN is. Yeah, because around where the UN is, towards the northern side, if you remember from the map, where Gigiri is, where the UN headquarters is, this is where you have the highest demand. Yeah, and you saw predominantly it's zoned for family size homes. So for any single assignees who want one or two bed, they would have to be situated towards Westlands, Brookside area to be able to easily access the office if that's their priority. Yeah. And so the demand is quite high for decent, good expatriate level, you can say, in terms of quality properties in this that they would be looking for. Yeah.
I have a quick question from someone. Someone's just asked, they have a one bedroom in Kilimani. Let's say if they were to come into this roadmap, on expectations they could get in terms of receiving rental income and how much would be Kilimani. Because I think Kilimani is interesting. Like I said, like my mum's got an amazing two-bedroom there. She does decently well on Airbnb. She gets a decent, but it's not as consistent as she would want it to be. Of course, now we avoid that problem with having you here, and that's why we partner with someone like you who now has access to our clients, so we don't have to rely on Airbnb. So Kilimani, one bedroom, what are the chances? What are you seeing, and what's the rental rate that she can expect, or she or he can expect to receive?
Furnished one
That's a
bed.
great question. I would assume, let's say furnished, yes.
Furnished one bed in
Service.
Kilimani. Furnished.
Mhm.
Sorry.
No, I was
Yeah.
just saying service, but yeah.
Furnished one beds. I think I'm seeing anything from around 120 going on up. Some can even start as low as about 100, about 100,000 in Kenya shillings, going
So,
up. Now, this will depend, number one, on the type of furnishing, and then of course the specs of the apartment. Is it modern? Does it have good views? Does it have a balcony? What kind of amenities are in the building? So there would be a lot of factors in determining what the rent would be. Yeah, there would be multiple factors in determining the rent. Additionally, if you're servicing the unit, that's now a whole other discussion, because what kind of servicing are you able to provide? Say, are you including the water, the electricity? Is there housekeeping services, internet? If these are included, then this would add on to the package of the rental rate, because then there would be a little bit of, you're managing the property and you need to make sure you compensate your time for, even if it's that hour or two of settling some of these payments and making sure they're working properly.
mhm. Okay. Interesting. If anyone doesn't have any questions, feel free to ask. Now, I would just like to ask, um, before we go into the areas, Westlands is interesting. Let's start off with Westlands, right? Now, for me, I have a unit in Lavington, and where I've gone is, yes, Airbnb has been booking it. I'm going to Nairobi next week, and that's where I'm going to go stay. Obviously, doing some conversations with Wemboy, having consultations with, the people that we're taking through this roadmap. I'm saying, you know what? I'm gonna go live in my one in Lavington, pay rent there to our apartments, but now I'm gonna go get another one in Westlands because from talking with you and what I'm seeing, I'm like, okay, that's where I need to be. And we're also taking clients through that right now. So can we move to Westlands and what should people expect? And then we'll move on to Lavington next, and then we can move on to Kileleshwa. And I guess we just touched on Kilimani just then, right?
Yeah. A little bit, yes. Okay, so Westlands. By Westlands, I'm going to pull up my map again because Westlands, the term Westlands can be so confusing because it's so broad. Now, Westlands is a sub-county of the larger Nairobi County. However, when people make reference to Westlands, typically the area that they are talking about is, you see where Sarit Center is here? Can you see the map that I've pulled up?
Yep, yep, yep.
That visible?
I start.
Okay, good. Okay, so Sarit Center, Woodvale Close, this area of Woodvale Woodvale Road, sorry. And the reason, so these area, I don't know if you can see, there are neighborhoods that are on this Google Maps in this like a beige color. Yeah. So this is typically the spaces that people think of when it comes to Westlands. Yeah. They're mostly commercial. Westlands, over the years, when Safaricom set up its headquarters here in Westlands, and then a lot of the banks also moved towards Westlands. A lot of the service providers that work closely with Safaricom in the early 2000s all set up in Westlands. There was a need to decentralize government services from Nairobi CBD. And so what a lot of government offices did is they took up space here on Woodville Avenue. So there's a National Social Security Service Office, National, what is it called now? Social Health Authority is based here, you know, so that this area of Westlands almost became like a little mini downtown, which serves, you know, the corporates that are in Westlands area as well as the surroundings. Yeah. And so typically these part of Westlands is what is considered, I guess, the downtown or, you know, core or central Westlands. And so the neighborhoods, the residential neighborhoods that service this area. So you have around here is Chiromo. Chiromo neighborhood. Let me talk a little bit about this because it's very exciting. This is where the GTC is. And the GTC is the Global Trade Center. This is supposed to be hosting a lot of business conferences. It's supposed to be like the tallest building. It's just right now, it's just a big hype, the GTC is. And so you have a lot of banks, you know, a lot of the international banks, Standard Chartered. The AU offices are in this neighborhood. The Nairobi Stock Exchange is in this neighborhood. So it's become like a little mini financial district. There's a lot of your JP Morgan has set up an office here. A lot of your investment firms are, you know, have their offices here. So Chiromo area attracts those finance and insurance and, you know, venture capitalist type clientele. And then, of course, because of the presence of the GTC, has a lot of your business tourists who are here for a week for meetings, launching something on the stock exchange or in meetings with the banks or attending conferences at the GTC. Yeah, you can also see we got our first Marriott. JW is finally here in Nairobi and is aptly based in this neighborhood. So it's the Chiromo area has become almost like our little equivalent of a little Wall Street in Nairobi. Very exciting at the moment. Yeah, right now it's a lot of people, there's high demand. A lot of people do want to be in this neighborhood. I think with Sujira, when we were looking at the apartment for our first client, you notice that now there's even now a premium being placed on how high a unit, you know, how high an apartment because of the views. You know, you have amazing views of downtown Nairobi. You also have those that have overlook Riverside area that have a lot of green views. And then also those that look towards parklands and would have now a bit of the green views from these northern suburbs, so towards the office and towards the Karura forest. So it's an exciting space. And then across the highway, slightly north, there's these neighborhoods around Raptor Road. Also very exciting. These are within walking distance as well towards your central Westlands, which is where a lot of, yes, the corporates have their offices. Now, Raptor Road is a lot quieter compared to Chiromo that we just talked about. Raptor Road attracts a lot of my kind, the young professionals who are looking for something long term. Whereas Chiromo attracts a lot of the, you can say your business type travelers. They do have higher budgets, though. I will mention that. But the business, your business lot who are here for a week, attending conferences, you're in the finance industry or the venture investment type, here to launch something on the stock exchange. Those clients do have more generous budgets. And like I said, right now there's a lot of excitement around the GTC and a lot of what that has to offer. But I will mention that, yes, a lot of my types who are here long term prefer, Raptor Road. They're looking at a home. So the excitement of the GTC in that area is nice for a week, but for long term, a lot of them will settle around Raptor or Riverside area to be able to access the same. But these are quieter spaces, more residential, a bit more greener.
Yeah, Raptor and okay, so that's very important. Just a few small quick questions. Just quickly, what's the name of the road for the business travelers in Westlands?
Chiromo. The neighborhood, Westlands Road, is actually called Westlands Road, but the neighborhood broadly is called Chiromo neighborhood, this area.
Okay. And a question, what is like this might not be in your direct expertise, but like what's the process of putting a property in a business name versus using someone's personal information, whether they own or they're subletting? Well, let's say, yeah, own or subletting.
I think this you have to check with the lawyer at the time of leasing, but there is no from my standpoint, from the standpoint of a lot of the clients, it doesn't matter whether the lease is going to be held by the landlord, in their personal capacity or in a company that they own. Yeah, this has never been an issue.
Okay, perfect. And then in this Westland, so before I ask about the rental rate, before we move over to Lavington, someone's asked what is the cost of a one bedroom in this area, in this Westlands area that you've shown us? And then interesting how you said Raptor Road. Okay, so let's say, let me put this in practical. If I'm part of this roadmap, I'm part of this relocation to TV Kenya series, and we're coming with one boy, we're doing it here with us and I want to get a place, a two bedroom in Westlands, let's say Raptor Road, also what's the rent that I could expect to earn from that? And on rent, long term, and then even on some short term stays, maybe if it's 2 months per se. So yeah, two questions there before we move on.
Yeah. So around Chiromo area, the rents vary. I think with the one that we've looked at, I think you found some for even starting in the 80,000 range. But I think a reasonable rent seems to be, at least I was advised, 120,000 going on up. Is a maybe more realistic, because then you would have higher floors, you would have buildings that would have, say, a full service generator. So you wouldn't have to worry about now fitting in an inverter or negotiating for a landlord to fit an inverter and the like. So you would have more, better servicing. I think broadly, let me call it better servicing of the building. If you're willing to take, slightly higher, but then you can also pay, you can also charge a premium for a lot of that servicing and a lot of that convenience. I think I hope that answered the question about Chiromo.
Mm-hmm.
And then for my Raptor lot, yeah, Raptor Road. Raptor Road, the clients who I handle, who now build this demand around Raptor Road and then Riverside area, we do have quite a lot there as well who are interested in these neighborhoods. They would have, we actually advise them upfront to at least at a minimum work with $1,800 as a budget for rent. Some will still, come slightly lower and want to review or, want us to research options at the 1,600 rate. But there will be those who are higher, are happy to pay slightly higher, especially, when they want more green views. So they're happy to, pay a slightly higher premium up to, $2,000, sometimes even higher. We've had people pay up to $2,500 and are happy to take up, these options in these neighborhoods, Raptor and Riverside. Yeah.
I just want to touch on that, guys. Did you just hear what she said? You can expect to see the rent, especially we do serviced. And don't even get my business mind on how else we can serve people. I remember having a conversation with you, about, in our first consultation with one of the amazing people here, some of the things that these clients look for, like meal prep and things like that. So don't get me started. But you just said $2,500. And let's say we can find a place unfurnished in Westlands Raptor for 80K, 85K for an amazing place in Raptor. So you're paying $600 US dollars rent a month, but you're receiving 2,500 USD cash, quarterly payment upfront. Look how powerful that is. Okay. So Westlands, yeah, so you would say Westlands is at that area. Okay, let's go to Lavington next.
Okay. So
Oh,
Lavington.
sorry. Well, just one quick question. Someone's asked if the rent is higher, will we be able to charge a premium rate or will the standard rates apply?
Yes, if you're starting at a higher rent, it makes sense to of course charge a premium. For the higher rents, also be prepared to then furnish to higher specs in terms of, your selection of furniture. Again, now I'm almost cautious to say what I have found in this industry now, being the one who now, in the position of the corporates that are taking up the properties, there's a property for everyone, and there's someone for every property. Our younger professionals tend to look for more modern, minimalist furnishing, very clean. I don't know if I can go back to the, where is it? Yeah, clean lines, minimalist type furniture. No, not too much clutter, neutral colors. Yeah. If you're targeting my more mature, sorry, this was supposed to, be case study number 2. But for my more mature, for my more mature clients, they prefer more classic type furnishing. So maybe a bit heavier carpets with more intricate design. So the furnishing is important, depending again on who you're targeting. So I think work closely with somebody who can assist you to make sure you furnish to be able to target the kind of client and the kind of rent that you're looking for. So this part is key because they do look intently. Like I said, so I'm looking at it from the corporate standpoint. The companies need to know that their employees are choosing properties that are safe, and secure, and they know the location. Yeah. So blue zone, perimeter stone wall, electric fence, 24-hour guards at a minimum. Now, then the rest is based on the client's taste, but I'm telling you broadly what they look for. A younger clientele do like more modern furnishing, minimalist, neutral tones, whereas the more mature ones, who would be selecting furnished and serviced accommodations, tend to, yes, like I said, more warm colors, so slight beiges, a little bit splashes of red, maybe your more supersized couches, yeah, would look for, yeah, more classic. If you can look at more classic designs in terms of the interior decor.
Mm.
So then, yes, you would be able to charge a premium depending on, yes, how how you position yourself in the market.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and interesting how you had the case study there. Okay, Lavington next, which is I have my apartment, my unit in Lavington. So yeah, what can someone here who has and meet again, guys? A lot of this, someone's just asked a question, one boy, and let me know what you say. But someone's asked, how long typically would it take to rent out a unit, assuming you meet all the basic requirements in Westlands and Lamington? Let's say someone comes through us, they have the consultation with you and how you play a pivotal part in, we do the marketing, we do all of what we do, and it meets the, of course, the interior design, that has to, of course, meet the standards. But let's say that all does, um, how long would it take to rent out a unit with one of your clients?
If it's we've selected a proper, a unit that is attractive or at least aligned properly, I would give maximum 1 month, maximum, I would say. Yeah, maximum a month. If we are able to access it and bring in clients to, come have a visit, yeah, I would say maximum a month if we have aligned it properly. Yeah.
That's fantastic to hear.
Yeah. 1 month,
Mhm.
confidently.
Yeah, and you touched on this in the previous webinar, and I have a clip from it when we touched on the podcast. Was guys the way the partnership with One Boy started? Because for me, I've been renting out, like I have my Airbnb, and I thought Airbnb has been tough for us. Of course, it's been paying my rent, but it hasn't been bringing so much revenue. So then I thought, okay, who else has access to my clients? Who else has access to my clients? That's how I think as a business owner. And one boy is someone who corporate clients come to. And the problem that she had again is the lack of exclusivity that she can come to and just have units. So, like you just heard her say, within 1 month, you could, if of course, if everything is met in her standards for her clients, you'll be able to receive a client, and that's income coming in. Okay, so let's go to Lavington.
Mm. Yeah, Lavington. So Lavington, so of course it starts from along James Gishuru Road. There is this sliver of Lavington around Kanjata and behind ABC Place, if anyone is familiar with Nairobi, behind ABC Place. So Kanjata and Musangari, there's a small sliver of Lavington that permits apartments. So there are some units here that have close access to where you'd be able to quickly jump onto the highway and be able to make it towards either Westlands or the CBD or Upper Hill or wherever their offices are. And then the other sliver of Lavington that has, so much of Lavington is predominantly standalone homes and townhouses. The next sliver of Lavington that allows apartments is around Gitanga Road area. So Valley Arcade, this area around Valley Arcade, these neighborhoods, Maziwa, Thompson Estate, as well as this neighborhood here, which is called Hendricks neighborhood, does allow apartments. Yeah. Now, typically, the apartments that are on this side, Sujira, I don't know where your apartment in Lavington is. I'm assuming it's towards this area because here you do have a lot of 2-bed options of apartments, whereas across the ones in Hendricks neighborhood, a lot of these, because of the schools access, The people who select these typically would be looking for like family size apartments. So your more 3-bed units. Proximity to Braeburn International, Braeside, Rusinga. These are all schools that are in this, in this neighborhood. So here, this attracts more family types. So you're more 3-bed units. However, on this side of Lavington, you do have a lot of 2-bed units. Yeah. Lavington is liked because you're very central. And I always say Lavington is loved by all. You're central to, I'm going to zoom out here a little bit so you can see Lavington relative to the CBD. Yeah. So this is Nairobi CBD. This is Upper Hill. This is Westlands. And then towards the south, after the Ngong Forest, is Karen. Yeah, Karen and Langata. So Lavington is central. So Lavington has very affluent, your affluent Kenyans are all want to be, a lot of them do want to be in Lavington area. With Lavington, you would also get a lot of my diaspora friends who are visiting Nairobi and are going to be here, say, and need a place for like a week, whether it's for the Christmas holidays or during the summer break, and are going to be visiting the country and need to access a lot of these residential spaces to visit family, friends, or here for a wedding or the like. A lot of them like to be in Lavington area. Yeah. A lot of tourists as well like to be in Lavington, because from Lavington you can easily access a lot of nightlife in Westlands, a lot of nightlife in Kilimani area. You're able to access the national park. You're able to get to the airport easily. If you're doing local, traveling locally, you're easy access to Wilson Airport, to go to the Mara or to go down to towards the coast. So Lavington is liked a lot for that convenience, very centrally placed relative to the neighborhoods. Yeah.
And the income for, and you were right, by the way, my place is right near Valley Arcade. That's where Neptune is, like very close to Valley Arcade.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, what would you say rental income people should expect from Westlands before we can move to next Kilimani slash or Kilileshwa Kilimani slash, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So for the sliver of Lavington that's towards the north, so this is where we've been able to put in a lot of our corporate clients to be able to access Westlands, to be able to jump on the highway to go towards the industrial area or the CBD or Upper Hill to work. And the rents here start from around 1,600.
Nice.
Yeah, 1,600 going on up. And then over towards here, we've been able to put up some clients. The rental, if I recall, I'd say they start slightly lower. They start around the 1,400 per month, yeah, rate in this neighborhood.
Kilimani?
Yeah. No, in the here around Valley Arcade.
Okay, Valley Arcade. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Would be the rental rates that I'm thinking, yeah, that we've been able to have around this amount. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And the next area? And
I think for apartments, that's it.
that's about it, you would say?
Yeah, that's about it. I mean, for those who are looking at targeting, okay, now I'm looking at even a little bit of my clients, but a little bit beyond that, say wanting to target the diplomats and the UN lot. There are very, very amazing apartments around this area, is Spring Valley. And this would have easy access to the UN area. Yeah, so the UN neighborhood. And alongside the UN is, the American embassy. A lot of the diplomatic missions actually have moved a lot of their offices towards these neighborhoods, especially when they sit in any of the UN meetings. What are they called? What do they call them? Committees, security committees and whatnot, just to be able to easily liaise with the UN. And so demand for units is very high, and the developers do build to very high specs to take advantage of the presence of the forest. So this in green, this area, this is the Karura forest. The lower side or the smaller side is called Sigiriya, and then this is the main part of the forest. So along this neighborhood is Spring Valley, and there's quite a number of really beautiful, you'd say almost premium apartments that overlook the forest areas. And here the rentals start from 2.5. So they are quite high if anybody wants to kind of target this kind of audience. I also do get some clients, they're not as many as my ones, my young professionals, but I do get a number of my more mature executive professionals who want this kind of quiet, very exclusive type spaces, and will want them for up to, a year, 2 years, furnished, fully furnished and serviced. Yeah, I do get. At least I have two corporates that all their assignees are coming to Nairobi and are seeking out this kind of apartment options.
Mm. That could also, if someone had a bigger budget, because I'm sure, let's say their unfurnished unit, if we're subletting, I don't know about buying because I don't really buy, I'm more in the subletting game. There maybe you could find 1,500, probably rents maybe 1,000. I'm not too sure. I'm just taking an estimated guess that you'd find an
Mm.
unfurnished unit there. But then at least if I'm paying rent $1,000 a month or maybe 1,200, I'm not too sure, but at least 2,500 USD is my rental income. So you're getting double than what you'd be paying rent. How much would you say an unfurnished unit would go for there?
So the unfinished units start from the 2,000 range.
$2,000?
Yeah,
Wow. Wow. Ooh.
yeah. But then here you can easily, yeah. So the starting for the furnished is 2,500.
Okay. And what about unfurnished?
Unfinished is 2,000. Around the average cost of an unfinished unit in these neighborhoods is around $2,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So then the starting for the furnished is 2.5. And then it goes on upwards. Here you can even charge 4,000. Easy.
There you go.
You get, yeah. Because here, these are more, again, the target audience who will appreciate the kind of quieter green spaces. This is your definitely more mature lot.
Mm.
Mature in terms of, senior executive professionals. They're more or less actualizing, I would say. They're self-actualizing. They're in Nairobi. Number one, for the experience of wanting to be in Nairobi. They're probably taking board positions, mentoring a senior executive or mentoring businesses to transition to the next level and the like. So yeah, they're happy to pay a premium to be in these neighborhoods.
Mm. So at least
Mm.
4K a month. Okay. Are we going to Kileleshwa or that's it?
So Kileleshwa, I think we discussed that alongside. Kileleshwa is very similar in terms of profile to Lavington. Like I said, Lavington, there's very few spaces of Lavington that accommodate the apartments. So Kileleshwa is the next one that, you can say Lavington and Kileleshwa, as far as the apartment space, would be very similar in terms of profile. Kileleshwa is a bit closer towards, at least this part of, okay, there's the northern sliver that I mentioned here of Lavington, which of course is very close to Westlands. But Kileleshwa would be closer to access Westlands compared to the Valley Arcade area. So it's quite popular, without a doubt. Kileleshwa is like a slight more mature version of Kilimani. Kilimani is attractive from the standpoint of walkability and lifestyle, and has a very young vibe to it, but it has the disadvantage of very high traffic. So especially for clients that need to access Westlands, this would be a big turnoff. However, it is very popular for our assignees who want to access Upper Hill. So our corporates which are in the medical space, pharmaceutical companies and the like, and those who need to access the industries. So come towards industrial area. Most of them will take up space to take up properties in Kilimani, and then hop across. Yeah.
And I've got a question which is a very good question. Do you experience more long-term stays for clients in the Westlands or Lavington area? Actually, yeah, even maybe you would even extend it from Lavington. Out of all these blue zone areas, where do you experience more long-term stays? And long-term stay we could classify from, let's say, even 6 to 12 months.
So long term is 6 to 12 months. So all our clients, I mean, the clients that I'm assisting typically would be taking up at least minimum, 6-month rentals. So they would all be taking up at least 6 months. The average is a year's rental. Very few take 6 months. And even the very few that take up 6 months, would be mostly, I think, in the Westlands. In the Westlands area. We have a lot, Yeah. But yes, so because all our clients at the minimum would be looking at the 6 months. So all the neighborhoods that I mentioned, each, they're all good candidates for for 6 months and above.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only one that I would say would maybe attract more short term and would be used as a more landing space would be this area, the GTC Chiromo area that we talked about earlier, the one that's more for our business travelers. And then because my clients who would take up that space are my senior executives, but then they would only take it up for up to 3 months. Yeah.
So you could kill it there for the short-term stays. And like I said, guys, I've had my place in Lavington this whole time. What I'm gonna do is I said, you know what? I'm seeing Westlands is there's just so much opportunity there. Now, what I would do in terms of just the income subletting game, I'll go get a place in Westlands. We have now you. Obviously, we'll furnish it and make it amazing, and at least we have a tenant to come in, guaranteed tenant, and pay rent 6 months to a year. So that's very interesting. Mm. Any other questions, guys? And go on one more as they.
As they talk, okay, as you. Yeah. I think that's it as far as this chart. I did want to more or less highlight the type of housing that is predominantly found in the different neighborhoods, because I think that came up on the other discussions, is about apartments in some of the other neighborhoods. So I did want to narrow down that apartments are typically, yes, your Brookside, your Gravelia, Kileleshwa, Kilimani, the little slivers of Lavington, Peponi Road, which I touched on, and then Riverside and Westlands. Yeah. So then the rest of the neighborhoods would predominantly have your townhouses and your standalone homes within, at least within the blue zone area.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
What I'll do, one boy, I'll just share my screen now.
Okay. Oh, there.
Can you guys see my screen? Yeah, so guys, basically this is what we're doing. Because I know people do have to go and time is very valuable, but now we have partnered with someone like One Boy who's extremely valuable in this whole process because it leaves us without having to worry about, okay, if I'm not getting bookings, if Airbnb is a little bit slow. So basically this is what we do when we get started. And then here on the very first part of it, which is what we're going through right now. But we have a meeting with one boy. She's part of this again. Her time is very valuable. She does this for a living, guys. She helps companies move to Nairobi with their signees. And so for her, her dedication is for her clients, right? So if she can be part of the process with us to design your unit that's going to match exactly what her clients look for, then you're going to have a guaranteed customer. Why? Because you're delivering value, you're adding service, you're providing someone a home in our beautiful country of Kenya, and you deserve the rental income that comes from that. So this is kind of the process that we go through. Then again, what we talked about, one boy, I guess this is probably the most important part here. This number one phase, which is where we're going through right now with a few people, as we're also documenting this because the marketing is very important. You got to market your unit. But yeah, one boy, we talked about, of course, the location, one or two bedroom, that type of thing that we're going through now is probably, would you say, the most important part of this? Because location, location, location.
Very, yes. As you've seen, just at least let me speak about my clients. The uptake is heavy towards Westlands. And so this is where I'm constantly looking for properties towards the Westlands area for this furnished and serviced, especially like I said, the two beds. This is where my demand for units is with my corporate clients.
Yeah. So that's what we'll do here, which is getting that place. And then we do a property walkthrough and inspection as we, let's say, we go through many listings, right? That's what we're doing now, going through, even if it takes us a little bit longer, okay, let's get that place. Then with one boy, we document this as well. We walk through the property. We go in there in person. Let's say you're in Dubai, you're in Australia, you're in America, wherever you are, but you're more of an investor. We want to think more on the business side of things, but we'll go walk through the property, make sure it's good. Then the lawyer is going to be very important, right? One boy, is there any kind of top tips for a lease agreement for people who are wanting to sublet, their unit or anything? Just, of course, we'll have a lawyer, come into that play.
Yeah, I think so this is so we are referring to the lease that is between your clients and the landlord. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess due diligence, like I think you pointed it out, a due diligence to make sure you're actually working with the correct landlord. And then very important is to be able to get permission to sublet. Just make sure you don't get in any kind of trouble as far as the subletting is concerned, because some leases do state no subletting, because there's, again, some developers are a bit starting to get very strict about this short let spaces. So there's some, starting to creep in a lot of controls around the short let spaces. So making sure you have permission to sublet, or at least have some form of negotiation with the landlord around this. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I have seen there's a company that has an interesting model, which I don't know whether this is a platform to raise it, but anyway, I'll just raise it because it came to my attention on a conversation I had recently. They have a model where they enter an agreement with a landlord almost for a profit sharing, yeah, where they engage the landlord and say when the apartment is unrent or not rented, so when they don't have a client to take up the unit, then they say pay a certain value of the rent. And when it is occupied, then they pay a higher, a more premium amount. So they almost get into a profit sharing arrangement with the landlord. I don't know whether this is something that you can look into. I'm not sure how they negotiate that with the landlord, but I've seen it. I've
Mm.
seen I've seen some companies that have this kind of arrangement. So it may be worth exploring. Yeah, I don't know whether this is possible with an individual lease, or maybe you would have maybe more of an edge to negotiate for this if you're taking, say, 5 or 6 units in a building, and you can, engage a landlord, if it's one landlord, to get into this kind of like I will furnish these units in your building. It's right now there are 5 units that are empty. I can furnish them, market them, and then we share. When I have a client, we can share part of the by me paying a higher proportion of the rent, and then when it's unoccupied, then you forfeit some of the rent, or some form of arrangement like this.
Mm.
I just thought, let me mention that, because it's an interesting model that that has recently come to my radar with some of
Mm.
the companies that do the furnishing.
Wow, that's a very, very interesting, I guess, insight for people. And then of course, once we've got the location, let's say we've got a beautiful place in Westlands, Lavington, Kilimani, some of you guys already have this place already, right? But let's say either we set this place up, maybe you already own a place, then okay, well, we got to furnish it, and the furnishing has to be, premium standard. You guys have seen a lot of our quality before, but furnishing it at that standard. And then again, one boy, also a little bit here, you can either have an interior designer that we can help you with, or you can choose to do that yourself. But that, of course, having that direction on getting the interior design perfect. And then for some of you guys who have already furnished it, then okay, then it's the marketing. You really got to market it and have great videos. And also, one boy will come in and do a video tour of your apartment with me as part of the TV series, going through your place. That maybe some of you guys want to stay in Kenya. Maybe like me, right? Like I can now go to Nairobi. I'm going next week and I don't have to go and pay big money on Airbnbs, right? Like I can go and stay in a home. But even though I made it for business, I made it for clients, it's still a home to me. So I guess the marketing is quite important. And would you just like to touch on that a little bit for some people who already have a place now? How powerful is the marketing? Because some of you guys coming into this, you can even skip all of this stuff, and we just go straight into either it's the furnishing
Mhm.
or into the marketing, and then now we have one boy with clients to put into your apartment because they can also see it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Marketing. You're Sujira, you're the marketing pro. Your best place to speak on this. From my standpoint, I mean, I will, the video tours will be important, because this is what I can share with my clientele, even ahead of their availability to come and view. Because where websites or photos are available, I do share, we share this property links or photos with the clients. They give a thumbs up, we go ahead and schedule it in and bring them in to come view. So they do a pre-screening. So this video or photo, very important, because it's your first way to even just attract and get the assignee to, okay, be happy for that property to be on the itinerary for viewings. And then I would also say it would also, I guess, allow you to market beyond just me. Very important to partner with the local real estate agents that are in the neighborhood. Again, my clientele is very niche. It's mostly the corporates. However, the realtors in the neighborhood, they have the liaisons with the different UN offices or the international NGOs, which are outside of the scope of my corporate clientele. So they have a broader reach. And then they also network a lot, so they work together. And they're able to, so market your properties beyond just, my small space. Now, I know there are a lot of a lot of people, at least here in Nairobi, it is standard where either for security purposes, they would prefer that their properties are not on public platforms. So this is, I mean, there is a space, of course, to have this provision where you select maybe a smaller group of people that you market with, or yeah. So I think there you have options, but it's good to keep all these in mind. Some of our clients will be like, oh, I do want this one because it's on every platform, it's been advertised on Buy Rent Kenya. I don't want to see, every time I'm opening Buy Rent Kenya, I'm seeing my furniture, my kitchen is there being used all over the place. So I've had some clients say, oh, that one is over it's everywhere, I don't want to touch that one. So yeah, marketing strategy important.
And I just want to, I like how you said that, guys. That's our goal as well. We're not just going to rely on one boy, just as the same way I realized I couldn't just rely on Airbnb. So imagine if you guys have a unit. Imagine if you've gone through this process, whether you own a place, whether you're doing subletting like us, getting cheap rent, less money than owning a place, cheap rent, and we furnish a place, make it exceptional. Okay, well, what are our options of getting clients? We have one boy that we have here, her source. Okay, cool. If something happens, da da da, we have Airbnb, we have booking.com. Like she just said there, we have realtors as well. You got to connect with realtors. One of my aunties from America, she did that. She got a realtor to go and said, "Hey, if you get me a client, I'll give you commission," because she doesn't like her place vacant because she wants that cash. And so you have a realtor. One boy we have now, booking.com, your friends and family, all of you guys have people in your network as diasporas who are traveling to Kenya all the time. And if you don't know many Kenyans, or if you're not a diaspora, then let's say you're in America, you're in the UK. Trust me, the way life works, you're going to meet someone who says, "Oh, I'm going to Kenya. I don't have a place to stay." Oh, well, guess what? I have a place. So you want to be able to have cover all bases basically. And again, our partnership with One Boy to cover at least this one base, because if I think about my apartment, I would also want a corporate tenant staying there because I know they're going to treat it nicely. I know it's a professional. They're just coming to work. So I feel safe having that person in my place can pay high rent. And that's why we're with you. So if you guys have any other questions, make sure you've booked in your time for a free coaching session. That's when we'll be able to cover. You can answer all the question. We'll have someone's asked, what is the averaging? And this is a good question, one boy. Quickly before we get out of here, any other questions you guys feel free to ask and save it for the coaching session. I've put the link in there. What is the average furnishing budget, assuming you already own a unit? That's a great question. I would just say for my one bedroom, we'd spent around 6,000 USD, but that's one bedroom, two bedroom. We also have a table for that. What would you say, one boy, for the budget for furnishing a unit?
Um, I can talk about this for maybe my personal experience of furnishing. Yeah, a two bed in the equivalent of about 1 million Kenya shillings. How much is that?
So that's about what, 10,000 US dollars?
Yeah, I think for two bed. Yeah.
Kind of makes sense. Like you guys have seen my one bedroom, like if I did $6,000 on a one bedroom, then 2,000 for 10,000 for two bedroom. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. No, actually, it's 7,008.
Ooh,
7,800
8K,
for
that's
two
not too bad. Are you kidding me?
for two bed. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Especially if you're gonna, you want to do it with quality, guys. As I said, the furnishing is extremely important. I can't stress. I know that myself. Okay, guys. So my mum, she spent 2 million Kenya shillings on her furnishing alone.
Ooh, okay. Wow. Two
Yeah.
million.
Yeah, 2 million, because she knew this is gonna be my home and she had to go all in. So she did over extra. You guys don't have to do that, trust me. But there you go, $8,000 or $7,000 is that's a starting budget point.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, guys. I know some here in Australia are going to bed. I don't know where else you guys are in the world, but if you have any questions, feel free. You can book in a coaching session we have for this series. We're really exciting, one boy, and a really amazing insight into what you do and how this is going to help people. Again, how can we get a return on investment? If I'm going to do this, a lot of people are thinking, of course, I always think of it, okay. do it to relocate back home to have a place. But of course, you want tenants coming in, you want income. That's what we're here for, and we can document this. I always like to say, don't watch what I say, but watch what I do. And that's a part of marketing. Yeah, we're all about taking action. Okay, guys. Thank you guys so much. Have an amazing long weekend, and I'll see you later.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.